Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 338 to the Better on Draft podcast. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. I truly appreciate it. It is the final episode of the year. Hopefully, we're all going out with a bang. Hopefully, Santa Claus was good to all of us. Let's start and see what everybody is drinking, starting with Rob. Rob, what do you got?
I have Rebel Kent from Three Sheeps, a nice amber ale.
Where's Three Sheets out of?
The Three Sheeps is out of, I think they're out of Madison. They're definitely out of Wisconsin.
And Daniel, what do you got?
I have got myself one of my favorites, the good old Speedway Stout.
Just a regular ass Speedway Stout today?
Yep, just a regular ass Speedway.
Perfect. And Wendy, what do you got?
I am in a Nashville mood, apparently, because I have a Fresh on Fresh from Bearded Iris. I don't know why I can't figure out my camera anymore. And I'm going to follow that up with a Southern Grist Mango Braco Nut. It is a mango coconut brown.
Okay.
I think. We'll see when I pour it out.
That's right. Ken's muted.
It is episode
Shocking.
337 and not 338. Just so you are aware, I am drinking a Dragon's Milk, just the regular plain old Dragon's Milk, and I'm going to be following that up with another Dragon's Milk.
Dragon's Milks.
Ken's going to get one tonight.
I am, that's for sure. I had the opportunity when I went to Total Wine last week. So after the show, I actually cashed my keg of Bell's Amber. And so I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to go to Total Wine on Saturday. And my choices were very, very limited for keg choices. When I went there, it was basically like Two Hearted. It was All Day, Shorts Local. And then the other two, there was M43 there as well. But there was like Dragon's Milk. And I'm like, well, that's going to be way too dangerous to have that on draft at home at my leisure.
I would die.
And so here's where Dan will make sure to remind everyone that I love IPAs. I actually got a keg of B43.
Nice.
Oh, Ken.
I know.
Why would you
pulled him
do
over.
that?
I like the
Pulled
B43.
him over to the
though.
happy side.
I don't know. That's really it's B43 is a lot more dry than hoppy. It is definitely one of the only tolerable New England IPAs that I can manage to drink, but it's also a keto beer. So should I start trying to get into keto again at the beginning of the year, I can drink that and not feel too guilty because the amount of carbs in it is comparable to like a Miller Lite. And the ABV is a lot higher too. So I am very, very excited for it. Dan, I know I've disappointed you.
Should have went with the Dragon's Milk, man. I don't know what you're doing.
So I want to start the show with not necessarily a New Year's resolution, but I want people to maybe understand a little bit more of how we address beers, how we look at beers, and more importantly, how we rate beers. Should we still rate them anymore? Why do we continue or don't continue? So I want to kind of go over all of our theories when it comes to craft beer. Now, myself, I have not used Untapped, not for Better on Draft, in probably a good 5 to 6 years. It was fun to kind of check in everything and see all the beers that I had, especially on those long trips. I think at one point we were even looking at doing just like a gimmicky Untapped channel where we were going to try to do 1,000 beers in 1 year, like just try 1,000 different beers. Needless to say, one, I think that kind of shows the amount of craft beer that's available and out there, because you can easily pull that off just by going to Michigan breweries all the time, and you could get a good head start just by going to Dragon Meat and getting 50 right there. But when you are, for example, let's start off with beer festivals. Do you feel that your couple ounce pour as you're getting beer after beer is a good rating for the beer itself when you go to Untapped or Beer Advocate or Rate Beer? Or do you think that it's better just to check it in to say you had it, maybe a few notes if you liked it, utilizing Untapped, and move forward. I'm going to start with Rob on this one. I want to get his thoughts.
Okay, so I'm actually a moderator on Untapped, so I do use the app a little bit. But as to at a beer festival, it's funny you should ask at that one specifically. So one of the groups I'm in, every February we do a game we call Drinking the Alphabet. So there's 28 days in February usually. There's 29 this year, but there's 28 days in February usually. There's 26 letters in the alphabet. And then we do 1 day for a number and 1 day for a symbol. So you have to drink beers and check in beers that start with each of the letters of the alphabet. And the first year we did this, February 2nd happened to be the year of Winterfest, a huge beer festival in Indiana. And so there's like 90 breweries that show up to this thing, and there's just tons of beer to have. And I drank all the way through the letter Z on that one day. Because of the tasters and checking it at the festival. As to whether it's good ratings or not, I usually stop rating after I've had a few, just because I know that my palate's wrecked. There's no way I'm tasting what I should be tasting in these beers. And lucky to stay upright and all that too. So yeah, I do eventually stop rating, but I do like to know. So if it's a brewery, for example, that I hadn't had before, which are my favorite ones to visit at these things, then I like to leave myself a note on the beer that I have, whether it's about the beer or the brewery itself, because it's easy to go back and kind of find that again. And then just see and remember, oh yeah, I did want to go to this brewery, or this beer tasted really off, even if I was a little drunk when I had it. I maybe don't want to go to this brewery. So that's about how I use Untapped now, even if I'm not at a festival trying to drink the alphabet.
What about you, Wendy?
I am pretty much the same way. I like to check in my beers so that I can remember that I had it. I'm also really set because I forget to check in beers so often on getting to the next level of the beer. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like 5,000 beers. I think 7,000 is the one I have to get to now. I'm not 100% sure which one it is. And I'm like 700 away, but I forget to check in beers all the time. But I stopped rating them because even though I know how to rate a beer, I can taste a beer that might not be to my style, be to something that I like, and know that it's good to style. But most people on Untapped don't know that. They don't know how to do that. They don't understand what that means. They're rating the beer based on whether they like it or whether they don't like it. So I don't want to put that out there for them. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And then there's some styles where they're going to be rated higher than they honestly should be, just because of all the beer bros who love that style and love those beers and what have you. Yeah, whereas the poor lowly browns, they all get these horrible ratings, even though they're made well.
Well, look at what RateBeer does. RateBeer is the kind of site that has like the general rating and then the rating for the style, which is like adjusted for inflation or whatever you want to call it, like adjusted for poor ratings. Like, this is where when somebody comes along and says this is the best Pilsner I ever had, and they rate it like 4 out of 5, and I'm like, what would you need to get a 5 out of 5? Right. But it's obviously you would need it to not be a Pilsner.
True. Now I will say, if I rate something on Untapped, if I put a 5 on there, it is because I want to remember to tell the people in our organization that this was an amazing beer I had. I want to share that with you, so that then they can go and review the beer and do an actual full review on it. Or it's for whenever we go to Beer Fest, that we're always asked for our top picks. That's what when I rate a beer, is so that I can go back and look and see, oh, that's the one I wanted to talk to you about.
What about you, Dan?
Yeah, so I actually have a good example for this that I was thinking of and I'm very similar to Rob and Wendy here. There's no way in a 1 to 2 ounce pour that you can, get a good feel for it and rate the beer. The example I have actually this year is at GABF. I tried the Alaskan Smoked Porter, 1 ounce sample was great. About a month later here, had a pint of it on tap, struggled to get through the whole thing. So while that 1 ounce was great, when you're getting to the bottom of a 16-ounce glass, that smoke started to overwhelm, making it tough to drink. There's no way I could have done more than one. So I think if anyone's rating off of 1 ounce, they're really not giving, a proper rating. There's no way you can tell the characteristics or how a beer is just off that small sample size.
It doesn't give it time to warm up either.
No. So you're drinking this, it's literally one sip. So once you're done with that, I mean, there's no way to tell how it's going to change. Like, for example, especially a stout, you don't want to have ice cold. Use that as a perfect example. So there's just no way to judge it.
I agree.
I think for me, especially if you're having a beer that is at a bar as opposed to a brewery, how many times have we gone to a bar where you can obviously tell that their lines haven't been clean or they haven't taken care of it, or God forbid, it's that bowling alley I go to where the Alaskan Amber was on draft for a good year and a half before it got separated or changed into something else. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it where obviously breweries are going to want to know if you find, bad lines somewhere. So, mentioning it to them is a good thing. But I think in this day and age, there are too many people who believe in their own shit too much when they shouldn't at all. I can on purpose tell you, like, any rating system is going to be a personal preference and it's not going to be a general wide rating. And I'm not going to be able to rate something fairly just because I'm not a BJCP judge. I don't know how to tell the differences in between one flavor profile or another. The only thing that I can tell you is if your beer's infected or your beer shouldn't be tasting, if I'm tasting sour apple, I know I shouldn't be tasting that in the first place. So I just don't see, and this is what I'll lay back to you guys, is rating beer good for the community, good for everybody? Rob, you might want to plead the fifth because you're a moderator of a rating app, but like, is it worth it anymore, like, to have a numbering rating system?
So to a couple of points I want to address there. One, the BJCP part, where they're judging according to style guidelines. And I guess technically a beer made technically correct should taste good, but that's not what they're judging. They're judging if it's made to the style guidelines. So that's different from what breweries are generally producing. If breweries are producing for a competition, that's one thing, but generally they're producing to make something that sells. So they don't really care if they're to style or any of that. So trying to put the two together as a way of fairly rating is going to be a difficult task. And then, the styles are made up anyway. So there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of, like, what's the difference between a porter and a stout? So it's not really a great guidance there. And as to the number part, I think that it's a wisdom of crowds game that they're going for, or some idea of that. But our crowd is all rating everything too high anyway.
Wendy or Dan?
Yeah, so I think it's stupid. We've talked about this going back to 2015, because you're always going to have people who don't like the style of beer rating it 1 or a quarter star, whatever ridiculous rating you could do. A rating really should be just a personal thing. I don't think it should affect the beer, overall, but if you're rating it, it should be for yourself. So you can see how you've rated beers in the past and what you think about it. This whole thing, Rob mentioned the beer bros, I believe. I think it was you, Rob, that mentioned that are going to rate a specific beer, aka IPA, way too high because it's all they drink. It just ruins it. It doesn't really give you, these ratings don't help you figure out what's good in any way.
I think that's honestly, as we have on our page. If you're not watching the video live, obviously you can watch us live over at twitch.tv/BetterOnDraft or even youtube.com/BetterOnDraft. And we do interact with our guests, including Godzilla, who's saying that they use Untapped as a personal rate on a specific beer. And I think you can go over Untapped. You can file on Untapped and say you drink a beer without actually rating the beer. So that's once I realized that, like, it made Untapped a little bit nicer for me to want to use in the first place, because now I'm at least just putting my notes in there. Because at one point I was like, I'll rate a 5 if I like it, a 3 if I want to try it again, or like I don't rate it if I don't, like it. But even that 3 out of 5 can hurt a brewery, especially when you're dealing with organizations like Tavour, which has to be a certain rating on Untapped just to move forward. But when you go into like Pilsner Urquell on Untapped, which is obviously the Pilsner in the world, and you see the rating, you're like, how is this not a top tier beer? And it's just because it's not one of those styles. But Wendy, what about you?
I agree with what everyone's saying. I do think that it can be helpful to the breweries because they can see what people are necessarily liking or not liking, even if it's not 100% because they're following the trends. At least you can look at the trends by looking at what people are rating, even if they're not. Again, I don't like to rate stuff just because, like Dan was saying, he likes to use it as a personal rating to remind himself. I was doing that for a while too, and I've gone back and looked at stuff and I was like, why did I rate that high? Or why did I rate it that low? There's been things that I posted that I'm like, well, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, and sometimes you're just in a great place, like socially or whatever, and so everything's going to taste so much better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and you brought up the fact at the beginning of the conversation, like, how many beers have you had that night? What did you eat? Where are you? Are you at a party? Are you at some type of a funeral, like you're at a wake and you're drinking a beer? Like,
yeah, I will say, so as far as ratings, I won't use it to choose a beer like on shelves, but I will look at the comments that people have left, and those are pretty sparse, but some people actually leave tasting notes of some sort in their comments. Sometimes it's like, hey Beth, I found this, or something like that, but which isn't helpful. But occasionally you can find some things in there that explain either what they were thinking when they were drinking it, or how it felt.
Yeah, but isn't it better off to just message the brewery directly if you have some type of issue than putting them on blast on Untapped or Facebook or whatever?
Yeah, not so much right. I don't want to see like that, and who knows what kind of grudges people out there have, and they always take it to the socials as over the top as they possibly can. Right. But if I see people leaving happy little notes on the thing, like we just stumbled across this beer at a bar and really enjoyed it and got a second one. Especially if I see that they ordered a second one, then there's a good chance I'll try that one.
Listen, I've tried to bury the hatchet with that dude on DACB that despises me. And he has no interest in it, and there's nothing much more I can do other than put the offer.
So I do have one more thing to say about Untapped that I found it really useful this past season for the Advent calendar, because I did the Costco Advent calendar and I posted about every single beer every day during Advent on TikTok. And you can only talk about a Helles so much. So I started researching the breweries and that particular beer. And I found Untapped very useful for that. I would start with Untapped, then I would go to Beer Advocate, and then I would go to the brewery website, which was almost 99% of the time in German, and only sometimes was it translatable by Google. I now have German speaking people on my TikTok coming through. So I've somehow managed to make it on German TikTok just by doing the Advent calendar.
It's awesome. So the other thing that I like Untapped for is when I'm in some strange city that I've never been to before, and you just open up that map and you see what breweries or what beer venues are nearby, get an idea of what's in the area.
I mean, Google's good for that too.
Yeah,
Probably even better.
Untapped will sometimes have a tap list, and sometimes you can get a badge.
Oh yeah, if they have the menus, that I agree with. You are right on that. But yeah,
I do
like
love badges.
I never thought to open a different, app just to try and find the location of something. It just feels like an extra step. But that's a good point if you all need your badges. So
That's right.
I don't think I've ever prior to us building the original Michigan Brewery Map app on Google, like Untapped was great for that, as well as Rex Halfpenny's Michigan Beer Guide to find all the breweries in the state. But yeah, I don't think you can beat what Google technically has to offer, because if you can't find a brewery, especially a brewery nearby, you might be able just to find a nice beer bar or something like that. And sure, all that's on Untapped. But I think just Google kind of is always updated, and I use the "is it busy" feature way too often to decide if I'm going to go somewhere or not. Like if it
that
says
thing
this place
doesn't
is,
work well. At least places I've
Old
been
man.
to. Yeah.
I follow it blindly. I haven't had an issue following it blindly, so I'll just take that for what it is.
I do some traveling, and there's been a few times that Google told me a brewery was open, and I got there and they were not, which is fine if they're not in the middle of nowhere or the middle of an industrial park on a, Wednesday afternoon when there's no Ubers around.
Yeah,
Just
that's always a hard thing too. I remember when planning my our trip with Dan, when Dan and I went to San Antonio and Austin, and figuring out what times places were open and when we could get there, because it's the middle of the week, so you can't just go everywhere. Especially like in Michigan, most places are at least open Wednesday through Sunday. Whereas in Texas, like some places weren't even open Wednesdays and Thursdays. They're like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday type place. So those are always good. It's always best though when you're traveling like Wendy does, or when I think all of us do, when you're planning that, you have to check the hours. It is just impeccable, like a must when you're traveling throughout the country.
I'm laughing here because it happened to me in South Africa, and it was it was just a day that I had to myself, and kind of I had no real schedule or itinerary, and I checked the app, and there was a brewery, so I took an Uber to the brewery, and the brewery was not there anymore.
Oh, geez.
So the Uber very nicely, dropped me off and took me to my next destination, which was a beer bar that did exist. So that all ended up working out okay. But
Oh, I've had them leave me there before. Sorry, I have another pair to go pick up. So they would leave. I'm like, okay. I'll wait 45 minutes here in this industrial park with nobody else around for the next Uber to be available.
I would have just changed
That
the
happened to
address.
Garland.
You can change the address before ending the ride, unless he already ended it on you. So
Yeah,
no,
we-
they hit-
we
It
pretty
was
much
already
ran out of
ended.
road. Like we were looking for this place. We pretty much ran out of road, and he said it's not here.
Well, I mean, the three of you are fairly world well traveled. What are some of your favorite places you've hit outside of the US, or maybe in a more remote part of the US that you've enjoyed going to over the last few years or 5 years, whatever? Dan, why don't you start? You're the one that's been randomly going to other countries.
Now pass on me because I'm trying to think, because I've got a lot of places I was running through my head. Come back to me.
All right, we'll go back to you, Wendy.
I have not been to a lot of foreign countries. I've done a lot of US travel, with the exception of Caribbean islands. So I enjoy going to all the breweries in the Caribbean islands. It's a lot of light lagers, but every now and then you find a stout. You find some really awesome places, and the people are amazing. So I think my favorite would have been the Dutch side of St. Martin. I had a really good time there. The the owner at one brewery actually drove me to the next brewery.
Oh wow.
So that was pretty cool. Yeah, I have a lot of stories about Caribbean islands. What
Rob,
about you, Rob?
Yeah, I'm only going to tell the first half of this one. We could maybe do the second half another time. But so I was in Thailand for 2 weeks working on a project, which meant I got the weekend to myself, which was kind of great. And it turned out there was a bank holiday right there smack dab in the middle of that too. So I got a 3-day weekend that I wasn't expecting. And one of the guys I was working with found out that I brewed beer, and he said, "Oh, I'm learning how to brew beer. I'm learning it over at this brewery. You should come meet me there." So we set it up to meet there. And to get there, you take an Uber to, I can't even remember what it was. It was basically a few blocks away from a train station. And so you get out there, and then you have to take a water taxi to this island. Yeah. And the water taxi, after I did the conversion, I think it cost about 5 US cents to take this taxi over to the island where there are no cars and, just footpaths and stuff. There's a big a Wat out there. But then it's a lot of shopping and stuff. And out on this island is a place called Chit Beer. And it's run by 2 brothers named Chit. He started the business. He actually went to school in the U.S. and then he has set up a bunch of breweries in Southeast Asia. Like he runs basically a school out of this brewery. So all these home brewers come out there and they brew stuff, and then they come out in like a week and their beers are on tap. So but his brother Porn is the head brewer of this.
Wait, what's his name?
It is Porn, which means blessed Thai.
So you've got shit and porn?
Yeah, Chit and Porn.
Okay.
It's absolutely wonderful, right? So I'm there and I'm having a great time. And as the night goes on, they start ringing this bell, and each time they do, it's because a keg kicked. And so one of the students' beers gets put on tap. And the student comes up and says something in Thai, so I have no idea what he actually says. But then we all get to try the beer, and we're killing kegs left and right all night long, just having a wonderful time. It's absolutely great. And yeah, I ended up closing the place down, and the owner Chet, he put me on like the boat that is reserved for the business people of the island to get me off because the water taxis had stopped running.
Oh boy.
What's
the second half of the story?
Yeah,
Does it involve ladyboys or something?
No,
like that?
It does not. It does not. It's not that racy, but yeah.
I'm actually I've never been to Thailand, and I was just trying to look and see, and when we talk about beer laws, apparently it's illegal to homebrew in Thailand.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
So that's my guess is why a lot of people go to Chit Brewing to brew their beer, because it's at a legal spot, you might say.
So there's a lot of stuff that he's doing. You can look up Chit Beer on the internet, and it'll talk about this stuff. But he's breaking a bunch of laws over there and just pays the fines.
I like that.
And so, yeah, that's basically how he runs his business.
What do they say? It's only illegal if you can't afford the
Exactly.
fine.
Yeah, that's how it works.
I figured he was out on this island because it got around some of the taxation laws and brewing laws and all that stuff. But no, it doesn't seem like he gets around that at all.
Well, Dan, we gave you some time.
Yeah, so I narrowed it down to 2 that I was thinking about. One is in the U.S., and it's a place called Big Island Brew House on the north shore of the Big Island of Hawaii, kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's a really interesting place. But they probably have one of the best beers in Hawaii. It's this beer, and I gave them crap about the name too when I talked to one of the owners. They called it Odin's Sword. It's a barrel-aged stout or porter. I can't remember which one. One of the few, probably the only barrel-aged beer on that island. But everyone knows, if you know anything, Odin doesn't use a sword. He uses a spear. So had to give him crap about that. They said it wasn't the first time they've heard about it. The other would be Altitude Brewing down on the South Island in Queenstown in New Zealand. I think what really set that one apart is the setting. It's at the base of the really big mountain and lake, so it's got a really nice view. And they do some unique beers there. The one that really caught my attention, as I was talking about smoked beers earlier, was a peat smoked stout. So I know people, I don't know, Ken, you like whiskey. I don't know if you like scotch. But it gives a unique flavor versus, like that liquid smoke flavor you get with a lot of beers. They used actual peat to smoke it. So it gave a really good peaty flavor that you could actually, with this one, drink a few of.
I do not like scotch at all. Bourbon, whiskey are basically my go-tos in that realm of things. Scotch, I've tried a handful, nothing really gets me, so I just don't bother trying anymore, especially because of how expensive that hobby can get to drinking scotch. I'm good enough with my little bottles of whiskey that I always have here. I actually just cracked I had a friend over a few nights ago, and we cracked open. I had from my Japanese whiskey advent calendar, which I'm pretty sure I got in 2019 or 2020. I still had 2 left. One was a Hibiki 17, which that 1 ounce is about a $50 bar pour. So I opened that up for a friend who came over. I still got Yamazaki 12, which I think is right above where my thumb is, next to the big K behind me on the video if you are watching. For me, however, I haven't necessarily been too much out of the country. The furthest I've gone is like Toronto. Which, I mean, Canada is just basically like an extension of America for the most part.
Don't tell them
that.
No. I would never tell that to them to their face. But I think for me, one of the best spots, and I think it's a very, very well hidden area within like US craft beer, and basically Bentonville, Arkansas. They have such a nice little area of beers. Plus, I believe that's where, Core is there. I believe Ozark is there. It's a nice little area right next to, because Bentonville's right on the border of Oklahoma, basically, a couple miles away. So you get the opportunity to, 1, be near 2 states in case you're looking for other beers. But 2, it's kind of off the beaten path compared to where everyone else wants to go when it comes to craft beer destinations, your Asheville, Portland, Seattle, Grand Rapids.
There's 2 huge employers in Bentonville that hire consultants, of which I am one. So I've been down there. There's also a dry county down there. Well, there was last time I was down there anyway.
I don't think I ran into any issues with a dry county. I always get confused when I go to Texas, because like the laws in Grapevine, Texas are a lot different than like what a typical dry county is. But it's considered a dry county, so you can't typically buy booze anywhere. Like spirits, you can only buy beer and wine. Random blue laws that you just run into throughout the entire state. It's the same thing when I went to Baltimore one day, and like you couldn't buy to-go beer anywhere, but you could drink anywhere you wanted to, and everything was open. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm drinking at the bar today because I can't buy anything to take back to my hotel room.
So where my parents are at in Alabama, my dad was looking for something to put in his drink. And my mom's always like Christian Brothers brandy. So they went to the only store that you could buy liquor at in the whole area. And the $30 bottle of Christian Brothers brandy costs $75. Because there's only one store that you can buy it at. So it's not really a dry county, but they sure got a lockdown on it.
That's not a government-owned store, is it?
I don't think so. I didn't really look a whole lot into it. He told me that after, because he was looking for something for them for Christmas, so I had already left. There were a lot of sneaky good breweries in Birmingham, though. I had some pretty good beer while I was there.
Have either of you, Rob and Dan, been to Birmingham at all, or like that southern state area?
Not. Talk about like the former Confederate area. I have not.
Yeah.
I've been to Florida, been to Atlanta, or been to Georgia, and I stay out of Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. I stay out of there.
I can't remember if I was in Birmingham. I was in that area, but it was just a 3-day project, so it really did not stick in my head at all.
Louisiana, I think Lafayette, the casinos over there still give you free beer and free drinks if you're gambling. So
Oh, there we go.
I went to I think it's Lafayette. I know I flew into Houston and I had to drive out there. And I remember I showed up to the Golden Nugget over there and started playing blackjack and got like my first beer was free. I'm like, oh, okay. I know how this night's going. I might need to be getting a second hotel where I am.
I've done a few vacations down in the Floribama area, and that's pretty nice. There's even a Floribama right on the border that you can drink at. That's a pretty good place. It's just then you got to drive away from it because there's nothing else there.
All right. As we continue the show and kind of talking about things that are going on, we've talked a little bit about Untapped earlier. We talked about how we rate beers. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on what you will see in 2024. Is there going to be a style that you think is going to be a top tier style? Do you think we're going to have a correction when it comes to breweries opening or closing due to the final lingering effects of COVID and PPP? What are your predictions for the year 2024? I'll start with one and then we'll kind of go through and talk with everyone else and see what their thoughts are. Folks, if you're listening live over on Twitch or Kick or YouTube, Facebook, wherever, feel free to put it in the chat what some of your predictions are, what you think of some of our predictions, as of course at Better on Draft on all those. With that in mind, I think one of the big things we are going to start to see is I think 2024 is going to be the first year in a long time where we're going to have more closings than openings in breweries. I don't think there's naturally a specific reason. I don't think it's an economical reason. I think that it is going to be more. One, PPP saved a lot of breweries that shouldn't have been saved, or wouldn't have been saved, I should say, based on the quality of their beer, their business savviness. I think a lot of places are going to feel that pain next year as people start to continue choosing where they're going to spend their money. And I think 2024 is going to be the year of where we finally get smaller packaging options. But what I mean by that is more either smaller cans, so 16 ounce is going to downgrade to 12 ounce, or more singles, 19.2s in cans. So we're going to see either smaller can options in 4 and 6 packs or larger can singles that are going to be distributed where you don't have to buy an entire 6-pack like Voodoo Ranger, Two Hearted here in Michigan. Now they're the same company, so it doesn't, it kind of fits the bill. But what are your predictions? And I kind of want to go to Rob first because now that I know he's an Untapped moderator,
You see how proud I am of that, right?
Do you see trends when you're in Untapped of things like? Did you see when milkshake IPAs were starting to rise or cold IPAs or whatever? Like, do you see this before everyone else kind of sees it?
I don't know about before everyone else. So kind of. The way being a moderator works in Untapped, we have a moderation queue. So I subscribe to Indiana. We have a very active moderator in Indiana who keeps our queue extremely clean. So I don't see as much as I probably would in another state. But we will see a lot of like new beers being created of particular styles. And I will give you an example of that would be 450 North. And I don't know if you remember when 450 North's XXLs had their ABVs actually tested and they were lower than just the normal slushies. And it made a lot of people really mad. And basically all of their beers got locked and Untapped for ABV edits. And then every time they came out with a new XXL slushy, they had run it through, they worked with Sun King. They had run it through an actual testing. And so we had to 2 decimal places what the actual ABV of the beer was. But I saw that happening in the moderation queues and everywhere. And yeah, that one was kind of it was a mess. But it wasn't a prediction of what was happening out there in the world. Instead, what you see is lots of new beers being created. and people not knowing which styles to pick. So that, because what was it? Cold IPAs. That was a more recent one, right? Cold IPA wasn't a thing, and so people would say, "Well, it's an IPA, but there's nothing here for cold IPA." So it just I haven't noticed anything like that right now. So I haven't been looking too closely, but I haven't noticed anything like that yet.
Then what about you? What's your thoughts on what a 2024 will bring us?
I think that's going to be the rise of the cold IPA. I'm not sure. I think so. Every year is the year of the lager, right? Always has been. But we might see lagers actually get some love again this year. I feel like they got some love a couple of years ago. Maybe it was trending like right as COVID was hitting, that there were more breweries that seemed to be doing lagers. But I'd like to see some of those lagers or lager styles come back. Or get more popular, even if they're done with ale yeast. It doesn't really matter so much. But like a Schwarzbier, or some of the some Rausch beer. I'd love some Rausch beers and things like that. But like all sorts of the darker lagers that just are underrepresented.
Wendy, what's your predictions for the year?
First of all, Creature Comfort has a Mexican dark lager called Change Your Address that is amazing. It was so good. I brought a 4-pack home and I'm already disappointed that I didn't get more. My prediction for the year, I unfortunately, and I hate to say this because it is not my favorite style, but I think we're going to see West Coast IPAs come back. I'm just starting to see them more everywhere I go, and it was really nice for a little while because when I picked an IPA, I didn't have to ask if it was a West Coast style, but now we're starting to see more of them again, which really disappoints me. What I want to see happen is more Belgian styles. We don't see enough triples, doubles, quads at all. And we need those.
You guys don't get Taxman up there, right?
No.
We do not.
Okay. Yeah, okay. They distribute widely in Indiana, but that's kind of their wheelhouse.
The Belgian
That's actually
style.
one of my bucket lists.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a few breweries in Michigan, and I'm sure each state has a few that do like Belgian styles, German styles, fairly well and fairly consistently, but there's no distribution. So when you're looking for like a Belgian triple, if you could find like Dragon Mead Final Absolution, that's great, but that's Fat Tires triple, which isn't too bad. Unibrew,
New Belgium.
New Holland has black
New Holland Fat Tires, same in like company. It's all the same now.
You mean New Belgium?
New
I don't
Belgium,
think
not
New
New
Holland.
Did I say New Holland?
Yeah.
They would not take kindly to that. Pissing off Canada and New Holland.
There you go. Like I actually picked up some Allagash triple, and by I put in an online order on Binny's and had a friend pick it up when they were driving back to Michigan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there's a decent good amount of beer there because I could get stuff for MSRP or less. So this is my Knob Creek, Bourbon County. I don't know, 30th anniversary. Was that last year? Yep.
What would we do without our beer friends, man?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, they had to deal with trying to find parking at a place in Chicago, so they did a lot for me. Did everyone give their predictions? Dan?
No. So you actually said the similar thing to what I was thinking. I think we are going to see a lot of brewery closures. I remember we talked back during the pandemic. We were surprised more didn't close. I think we lost 2 here in Arizona during the whole thing. And there's just a lot of breweries that shouldn't be open. I agree with you. Whether it be the business, how it's run, or the beers are just bad. And I hate saying anyone's beers are bad, but it is reality sometimes out there. Maybe just not in their wheelhouse as far as the brewer goes. I really do expect to see a downturn this coming year, if not the next coming 2 years, because on top of that, people are moving away from beer as well, as we see with these younger generations. They're going to these seltzers, these non-alcoholics, these RTDs. As the people who traditionally drink beer get older, it's going to be fewer and fewer people patronizing these places.
Yeah, I'm actually looking, and I could probably get a good. So when we first started the Michigan Brewery Map app, it was actually at the end of 2020 in obviously during the pandemic. And by the looks of it, I've got roughly 104 or so closures. Some of these they were on the way out prior. Some of these, like Arbor Brewing Company in Ann Arbor, that kind of closed right as the pandemic started. I have like on here Detroit City Distillery. They never got off the like they never started. Same with like Motor City Harley Davidson over in Novi, Little Biscuit. So like some of those breweries are breweries that never actually opened. Some of them, like Saucy Brew Works, have closed. I'm trying to see what else. Big Red Farms. So yeah, so there's probably a good, I would say after all that, maybe like 80 breweries that have closed since we started tracking all this through the Michigan Brewery Map app. Which I mean is not a little.
So Arbor Brewing, they closed a location though. They didn't close the whole brewery.
Correct. Yes, they
have
closed
other
the downtown Ann Arbor brew pub closed, but Plymouth is still open and Corner is still open. Yeah, so there's a lot of them, like Motor City Brewing in Livernois that just closed earlier this year. I believe tonight's the last night for Ellison REO Town. We also had like the Raven Brewing closed, Osgood closed, Pointless over in Ann Arbor closed. So there's a lot of breweries that have closed within the state for one reason or another. Final Gravity closed their Kalamazoo, Experimentation closed, both Elk Brewings closed, Eldebrow. We have lost a lot. A couple Jolly Pumpkin closed, according to Bats McGee, which I believe we have in here somewhere, but not necessarily well gone. Our friends at Lynchpin, like we lost Lynchpin. That was a great little spot over at the French Laundry in Fenton. So we are still adding breweries at a clip, but I think this is going to be the year where it starts to kind of slow down and you start seeing breweries that probably should have closed, that will probably run out of money, that will no longer be with us.
The first wave of it was less closing and more of them being bought up, right? Like there was, the big boys were running around buying up breweries left and right for a few years there, and that seems to have slowed down. Now they're being left to close, and they're giving them back. Yeah.
Yeah, Michigan doesn't necessarily see that too often. Like our out of town buyers are Canarchy, which bought Perrin, Atwater, which is bought by Miller, Bell's, which was bought by
Lion,
and then of course Founders has been not craft beer since we started the show, basically. Like San Miguel already had an investment. So I don't think we see it too much here in Michigan, but I also don't think there's too many breweries that will be saved by some out-of-state purchaser. We lost Mills production facility, and sure, Mills beer is back up where they're doing contract brewing of their styles and their brands. But we're not going to see Rochester Mills as big as it used to be. I think as a lot of breweries are starting to downsize too.
I do think we're going to see
pub for them, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. The brew pub's owned by somebody else. So.
Oh, that's right. They just shared a few beers.
Yeah, they shared a few recipes, but the brew pub, along with Royal Oak Brewery and Detroit Beer Co., are all owned by the same entity. The production facility was owned by somebody else.
Gotcha.
I do think we're going to see a lot of our smaller breweries. And I say smaller because they're not smaller if you look at the rate that they've grown over the last few years. But we're going to see a lot of our breweries actually strengthen their ties in their community. And that is going to grow their sales. They may not be distributing across the state or out of state, but I think that they will be growing as a company, though.
I'd
Go on,
love it
Mike.
if we were getting back to the old style of every neighborhood has their own brewery.
Yeah.
When we had ours in my neighborhood, I loved it. I loved going there. And the one that I currently go to, that's feels like a neighborhood brewery, even though it's quite a hike to get up there. They're great people. I love talking to them. They love talking about beer. They make good beer. The crowd that comes in and out of there every day, they work and live in the area. So it's just it feels like a neighborhood brewery. It's great.
Yeah, I think you're gonna see those stay open and be fine, like the breweries that are in like Huco, which is in Ubley, Michigan, or Kickstand, which is in Commerce Township. Like, I think you're gonna see a lot of these breweries be perfectly fine, even though they're not necessarily big breweries. But I feel like there's gonna be a lot of breweries that are fighting against others, like breweries in Ann Arbor. We have Townies that it's up for sale right now. But whereas Wolverine State and Holmes are both doing well as Mothfire. So are the breweries that are in downtown Ann Arbor going to be in any issues like Grizzly Peak or Blue Tractor or Jolly Pumpkin, which was all the same company? I feel like you're going to see a lot of the issues with breweries where there's, maybe two breweries in a single city. But I want to add one more layer to this, and I think you're going to see a lot of breweries get bought up by breweries with money.
AK Kings and Convicts, what they were doing for a while.
I wouldn't say to that extent, because that's some big dollars that they're dropping over at Kings and Convicts. What I'm more saying is that, say for instance, something happens to let's say I'm looking at the list of breweries right over here. Something happens to Paddle Hard over in Grayling. That's going to be for the opportunity of, say, a brewery out in Traverse City, like a Right Brain, to open up Right Brain Grayling. Or, we see it with Eastern Market Brewing Company. We see it with Grand River Brewing, where they're kind of buying up where breweries were. Like, we don't know where the what happened with Fort Street. We don't know what happened with the location as well as the stuff, the equipment. But when you see like Brooks Brewing, I think finally sold in Ferndale. If it isn't selling, it is for sale. But you're
sitting there for a while.
It's been open for it still. Like, they haven't really closed it or anything like that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
But you're going up against Urban Rest Downtown and Urban Rest Regular. You're going up against B Nectar, which is over there. You're going up against downtown Ferndale in the first place. So going to all these other places. And, there's going to be those cities, those areas where it's not enough for two breweries or three breweries, but there's not enough to bring people in to go to both breweries, as we saw with Pontiac with Experimentation and Fillmore 13, where Experimentation is no longer here. So I think we're going to see a big course correction. I think we're going to see a lot of breweries expanding a little bit more. Dark Horse comes to mind. I wouldn't say that they won't go out and buy maybe another brewery or two. Wafo over on our YouTube says, are breweries setting up an alternating proprietary agreement where they share the same space? We've talked about this. There's that spot in Chicago, which just the name is not coming to me this second, where they have a lot of like home brewers and brewers come in, and it's almost like not a ghost kitchen, but a revolving kitchen where there's a new chef, new menu, new everything. I think with what we have to offer within the Michigan, because Tecumseh's got a production facility, Brew Detroit's got a production facility, Dragon Mead's got enough space for production, Roke's got enough space for production, Dark Horse, that I think that is where you're going to see a lot of places go when they want to make beer, to where we might even get, like, remember when Lake Brothers existed in Michigan? That was just a contract brew out of Brew Detroit that was fully distroed. No venue, nothing. It's the same with Red Rocker right now.
So you think you'll see more of that?
I think what he's talking about, though, is like Broadleaf, where you've got Brewery Vivant, Broadleaf, and Black Calder out brewing out of the same space.
Maybe Waffle would have to comment further within YouTube. I
Or
know
maybe
we
it's not a
are.
he.
Yeah, you just assuming that it's a
I
he
should
just
not
because it's a
assume.
craft beer world. We need
Bad
more.
Wendy.
Here come the ratings again. Here come the reviews.
But yeah, so I think there's going to be a big change within the industry next year. For those places that are looking to expand, you know, they might be able to utilize this contract brewing to be able to expand without necessarily overextending themselves. Like I don't see Artisan Reserve anytime soon utilizing like a contract brewery because they're just dealing with their 1 or 3 barrel system. But you might start seeing newer breweries that might want to get their name in before the brewery opens. Like I'm trying to think of what's upcoming. I did look at all the upcoming breweries that are getting here in Michigan. So Happy's Taco Shop, they got a brewing license, but they're up in Traverse City. They're in Boyne City, so they could go get something from Petoskey or go get something from Right Brain where they could get the beer made before they even open. That's the same with Stumblebum and Troy. Like they could probably go contract out of Loaded Dice or go contract out of somewhere else and get the beer. Of course, our friend Joe Walters is opening up One for All in Livonia. So I think you can see that as a difference. But I still think we're going to see a lot more closures and a lot more breweries kind of eating each other up within the industry to expand as long as they have money. As we finish this episode, the final episode of Better on Draft for the year, Wafo says, I am a guy, no worries. So Wendy, you're in the clear this time. Wendy had the right idea with the consolidation of breweries. So, I mean, I understand like Broadleaf, Vivant, and Calder, obviously all brewing in the same spot. But I think it's going to be something along the lines of, you know, I hate to say it, but I don't know how Coonan over in not Warren, but the other one, the Clinton Township one is still.
That one's still there.
Still there.
Wow.
And as new breweries get into that area, is it going to help them or is it going to hurt them with Tombstone, with Arctic Circle, Sherwood's still over there. I think there's one going into Harrison Township here soon. Are you going to have that like 59-94 corridor, or is everyone just going to kind of go to their one spot that they want to go to? That's going to do it for Better on Draft, the episode 337. My name is Ken. If you are listening live, of course, we're going to be back in about 8 minutes, 8:23 p.m. To go over the craft beer news, the final time for the year. No matter what you think of your beer, we think it's Better on Draft. Have a good night.
Cheers.
Headed for the city, trouble in my mind. I'm way too young and pretty for things to be unkind. Time is all we have now, so let's make something while we can. I'm headed for the city to make me start again. Conversation now and then. Gotta go, gotta get it. Don't make things go south, baby. Oh, 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 yeah. Oh, 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 I'm headed for the city to see what I can unwind. Always gotta start it to dictate, make it in this life. Time is all we have now, so let's make something while we can. I'm headed for the city to make me start again. Conversation now and then. Gotta go, gotta get it. Don't make things go south, baby. People say you get too broken. They just can't find a little soul. Light up a cig and let's get talking. Talking that rock and roll is more than just a style you play. You can get you what you need, just let it take you away. If you're ever feeling down, forget about the bullshit, dance your worries away. Say you get too broken. They just can't find a little soul. Light up the cig and let's get talking. Talking that rock and roll. Sit right back, relax and chill. Let me lead you on your trip, see how that rhythm feels. Don't let troubles cloud your mind. It's only in your head, you are so mighty fine. Where the monkeys swing, screaming, yelling out, can't buy a thing. It's magical, so magical. I know a place where the elephants swim. Their great big trunks just peeking through the brim. It's magical, so magical. Ha ha. Where the lions dwell, get cuddled up and cozy as well. It's magic. But all the pretty birds and the lions too, they don't compare to the looks on you. You're so magical, your beauty's magical. With your hair so long and thin and brown, yeah, it makes my mind.
Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's better on draft.
Welcome, everybody. It's the Craft Beer News segment, December 29, 2023. It's the final Craft Beer News segment of the year. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. I truly appreciate it. We are live every Friday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern, over on Facebook, Instagram, Kick, Twitch, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it now, TikTok, whatever else is out there. We're there. We're live.
Are we live on
appreciate-
TikTok?
Actually, no, we're not live on TikTok.
I was like, I don't
No.
remember that one.
We haven't gotten to the full amount of subscribers yet on our TikToks, but we'll be
Not yet.
working through that. Make sure you follow us on TikTok. That's at Better On Draft. Just like all of our social medias at Better On Draft, even Untapped. We do have an Untapped, contrary to popular
Live
belief.
there too.
We are not live on Untapped, but
Live
maybe
on
if we
Amazon
asked
Prime.
maybe if we got in touch with a moderator of Untapped, maybe we could go live on the platform itself. Let's go around and see what everybody is drinking, starting with Wendy. Wendy, what do you got?
Well, I stopped in Toledo on the way home and was able to pick up a lunch from the main beer company. So I'm going to drink that and also finish this Southern Grist Mango Braco Nut. It is not a brown, it's an IPA. So I'm going to do this lunch first and then I'll open up that one.
For myself, I'm still getting through the two regular Dragon's Milks at 11% ABV. This is going to
Not
be a
much.
fun night. Did you say it's not much of a?
I methis is 12, so
oh, I'm sorry, Daniel. I did start off
Oh, man.
the day. We talk about it in the Michigan Craft Beer Discord all the time, which of course, if you look at the show notes, you can join the Michigan Craft Beer Discord, even if you're not from Michigan. But I have to ask you, is it like when I go bowling, I want to drink a bowling beer. And when I think of a bowling beer, I think of three things: Miller, Bud, Coors, or Labatt Molson. Am I like, I know we go through the theory, if you like it, it's a good beer, but even if they offer better beers, it's okay to drink that kind of beer though, right, guys?
Absolutely.
okay.
Like
Yes.
at a
Evaluate bowling anytime.
Yes, it is.
at a sporting event, like there are times where when we go to like a Ford Field for a Lions game and it's almost like double the price to get a craft beer, and I'd rather just have two big, glasses of Miller Lite and I'll be happy as whatever. But yeah, I get a pitcher of beer. I'm like, I just want a pitcher of beer. I want to drink throughout the night. I don't want to have to keep going and buying beers, and I don't want, regular beer to warm up. So that's my Dragon's Milk. That's my little anecdote. Rob, what are you drinking?
I have a Bourbon County Brand Stout 2020. It's currently wet January in one of my Discords, so this one counts.
Well, we've heard of damp January, compliments of Wendy. What's wet January? Is that when it just gets completely
It's something.
schlitzed?
It's a different game. Yeah, pretty much. It's a different game. We started to protest dry January, where all of the beers that count have to be higher than 10%.
Yes.
It's
I'm
next-
joining this.
It actually starts before Christmas too. The weekend before Christmas is when our wet January starts.
Starts
I'm
Christmas Eve.
interested.
Let's go, kids. I got to drink my
Like-
18% worldwide stout.
I like these.
I do.
Dan,
So I'm drinking a Malpace from La Cumbre, and it's half a can. So if I finish that, I got me a good old trusty kilt lifter.
are you tapped out of your keg right now, or nothing from the kegs you wanted?
I
to
mean,
drink
this is
today?
from the keg. I tapped out the Russian Imperial I made,
Mhm.
and one of the other keg in there, it's a 3 tab, is tapped out. I just haven't had a chance. They're all the way on the west side, so I haven't got a chance to replace it yet.
A 3-tab. Damn, Dan.
I know.
I got one, and I'm just fine with that. I'm happy with that. That's for sure.
Like a variety, One of them so I can put, homebrew on, and the other two are for whatever I decide to pick up.
I don't know which one Bats McGee over on our Twitch page is talking about, but that's what I drink at karaoke is what he says. I'm guessing maybe like light lagers, like if you want a constant buzz throughout the night, you don't want to go
Definitely
too
worldwide
crazy.
stout.
Yeah, you can't
Worldwide
dry out
style.
your voice either.
I used to. There was a karaoke bar I went to over in Madison Heights, and they used to have Diabolical from North Peak, which is a 6.66% ABV. And I remember getting like buckets of that when I was there. And yeah,
On the
definitely.
rocks.
Yeah, on the rocks. Yeah. Going there and drinking. They always had for pre craft beer explosion, they always had a decent beer selection in their bottles and cans for sure. It wasn't anything too like crazy, like your Ale Marys or your Pourhouses or anything like that, but I always enjoyed it. But it is the craft beer news segment here at Better on Draft, and we're going to talk about some of the articles we feel are most important that you should know about today. And we are going to start with Wendy.
Well, I found a very interesting article. The city of Astoria, Oregon has had to reroute a portion of its Riverwalk due to collapse of the Bowie Beer Company's waterfront building. Apparently, the restaurant located in the building was shut down in 2021, and though it reopened elsewhere, the building stayed closed and partially collapsed in June of 22 when the pilings under the building gave way. Further debris recently falling has required a reroute of the trail. David Croning, the president and general manager of Bowie Beer, said a debris boom is in place, but that high tides are making containment difficult. He said the company is working with contractors to get a large cleanup done as soon as possible, and work is scheduled to start in January. I found it interesting that it's been 6 months and they haven't started the actual work to fix that in an area where people are walking. So I just wondered what your guys' opinion of that was. Is that normal for construction?
I'm curious who's responsible for it. Did it say? To
I
repair it?
believe it's the company that is
That's
responsible
probably
for
why.
it.
They might not have the money to. I know I was reading part of this and they thought it was sound for a little bit, but if they don't have the money to fix that, that's gonna be tough to do.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this where the Goonies was filmed?
Wasn't it?
That would be awesome if that's true. And how did you figure that out?
I know stupid things.
Good old Rudy running around in the caverns.
Interesting things.
Yeah, Astoria, Oregon is where they filmed the Goonies.
Okay.
So I wonder
So-
if any of that is like the Goondocks or, you know, the iconic locations of the movie.
That's funny. So yeah, I was just interested in that. I thought it was weird that it's been so many months that I guess obviously they had plans in place and they are working with people to try and make sure that it's safe for the people on the Riverwalk. But I just wondered what your guys' opinion was of it.
Yeah, I didn't have buildings collapsing as one of the reasons for a brewery to not
Right.
exist in that
Not
same
on your bingo
location
card.
anymore.
It was not on my bingo card.
I mean, it might be almost a catch-22 where they can't make money until the building's fixed, but they don't have the money to fix the building. So it's like a snake eating its own tail. Like no matter what, it's never going to be able to get out of it without maybe even some government funding or something like that. Even like a loan that they could get from the city.
Yeah.
That could be like, hey guys, we can loan you this money, but you got to pay us back. But at that point, you know, what's the rate? What's going on? Are they going to guarantee the money back? But if they left, like who owns the building? Does the brewery own the building, or do
I
they
believe
rent it
the
to someone
brewery.
else?
The article made it seem like it was the brewery that owns it.
Okay, because when you get into something like that too, where you have some type of third party now, so you have the city, you have the brewery, and then you have the owner of the building. Things could definitely get into a lot of, because you know the owner of the building's not going to want to pay for it, and the brewery's not going to want to pay for it, and the city's not going to want to pay for it, so nobody wants to pay for it, so nothing gets done. You might get into some issues too with supply chain, because I mean this has happened. I believe this happened last year. Like I know you said 6 months. I think this has been down for a year and a half from the few pages that I looked at. Like I have a link from a website called newschoolbeer.com from June 2022.
That's what I meant. 2022, not 2023. It wasn't 6
Yes.
months.
Yeah, so it's a year and a half now of this issue for sure. And at that point, there's probably a lot more issues at hand that you didn't think about, between the changes in tides, as you said, the weather, where this might just need to be demolished. Are they still in business? Is Bowie Beer Company still in business? Are they brewing?
Well, it didn't say anything about beer, but it did say that the restaurant that they had was relocated to a different place, but it didn't say when. So it wasn't like they shut the restaurant down in 2021 and moved it someplace else. Like, we don't know why that happened.
I'm just saying, the Fratellis, they were in a restaurant.
The Fratellis.
Oh, that's awesome.
ORV bullet holes. yeah, chunk. I think it's going to be one of those, like, nobody wants to do it and it doesn't get done until there's some type of legal ramification. Like, the city, if the city knows somebody needs to do it, they need to start legal proceedings to get it done by something like that, or just be like, if you can't do it, you forfeit your property, or we'll buy the property from you. In the chat, Bats McGee's saying that they like the light lagers. A bucket of Coors Light is good for them. And Godzilla says, if I'm drinking for quantity, a light lager is good, which I agree with. It's so funny. So I've talked about it all the time, but after Thursday, after bowling, I always go to Speedway and I get 2 of these for like $3.50. And for what these are Labatt Blue Light 24s from Speedway. And I found out because Dan made a comment, and the next time I went to Speedway, I noticed you could get 24s of Natty Daddy, 2 of them for $2.29 at Speedway.
Oh yeah, cheaper than water. Yeah, it's insane.
Like a 20-ounce Coke Zero costs like $2.50, $3.
How
but
is that
2
possible?
Natty Daddies is $2.29.
Isn't Natty Daddy the higher ABV?
Yeah.
You could get Natural Light, Natty Daddy, or Natty Ice, all for $2.29 for 2.
Go back to episode 25. We cracked open 25-ounce Natty Daddies. Celebrate the episode.
That sounds like something we would do.
Yeah.
We're also the same show that mixed KBS with Milwaukee's Best.
Yep. That's true. The Kentucky Beast.
The Kentucky
the
Beast. As we continue, let's go over to Dan. Dan, what's your article today? For today?
All right. So I couldn't find any news that you guys didn't already snag. So I wanted to do something. It's the end of the year, or it might be the first or second year, depending on when you hear this. Want to look back at 2023 with the 3 of you, Fort and counting me, of course. We're all we know a lot of different beers out there. There's beers we want to try. I want to hear, as far as chasing beer. So, higher end beers that cost more, that sort of thing. What's one beer you chased, bigger beer, like rare beer, that you was worth the chase? And what is one that was not for 2023? I'm going to start first. I'm really disappointed in this. You guys have been drinking BCBS tonight. I got an empty bottle of BCBS, the 2-year Eagle Rare. That was the biggest waste of $40 I've ever had as far as the beer goes. Hate to say it, I love BCBS. Tasted like watered down regular BCBS. The beer. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm trying to see if I have that bottle, but I've got like brand Sir Isaacs from last year. I got I got Proprietor 2023.
The Proprietor's good. They sent us that a couple of years ago. I wish you could get that outside of Chicago.
I basically bought one of all of the available beers at the Binny's that I was just like, all right, one of this.
Now, did you get the cask finished? Because they promised it out here and it never showed up.
Well, we could finish with, I've got the Backyard Stout. I've got the Banana Foster from this year.
Oh.
That is the regular ass 2023, the Sir Isaac Stout, the 30-year, and the Proprietor. Those are the ones that they all had.
Yeah, the mythical cask finish that no one seems to have is kind of weird. As far as the beer that I was happy to find, as far as chasing, it's distributed here but hard to get, so I had to go to the source, was 2023 Black Tuesday. Typically, they only sell that to the members as far as it goes until it's the next year out at the brewery. But I convinced him enough, or the guy just didn't know, to sell me one. that same price as this, but a bigger bottle. Again, $40, much better. So I'm glad I went through chasing that, getting the FOMO out of the way. As always, Ken, I'm going to go to you.
Oh Jesus, I didn't chase anything this year. I mean,
Which is odd.
I know. I like there's top beers that I loved that I just kind of ran into that I didn't really chase. I think 2022 is definitely going to be the year more that I went and tried a lot of things that I've always wanted to try. Like 2022 is the year that I did Sam Adams Utopia, Narwhal, Bigfoot. Like I had so many of those at the Brewers Guild Beer Festival, the Brewers Association Beer Festival, GABF. I think for me, Utopia was definitely the white whale, and I think I hate to say it because we definitely got it for free, so I can't really say that it was worth the money. It was definitely worth the money because I didn't pay for it.
Though. Yeah.
It was worth the chase and the wait for sure. I think something that I like, I'm going to start chasing a little bit more. There's actually a beer out of Kalamazoo, out of Wax Wings, and it's the brown ale, and it's the Mishamakwa, I believe is the name of it.
Cool.
It is so good. I almost drove out there Saturday if they would have sold me a keg of it. I called in advance, by the way. I was like, can I make sure I buy a keg of this? And they said, no, we only have cans. And I'm like, all right, that's I'm not going to drive out to Kalamazoo for cans at this time. Like,
I mean, you're halfway there. So
it's not that far of a drive. It's only like an hour 20 or so, hour 30 at most. And I just couldn't, there was nothing that really motivated me to go out there to get that, especially because I had the night before bought $200 worth of Goose Island and Allagash.
Oh, fair enough.
Plus, you know, I knew I was going to be buying a keg, so I bought the keg. So that was another 130, 140. Yeah. So I don't think there was really too much chasing for me this year. Even at the beer festivals, there was nothing really that I'm like, oh my God, I have to have, or here's my
Start the
one.
line.
Yeah, start a line. Yeah, I didn't go to Pigeon Hill at all. Wendy, what about you?
So I didn't do a whole lot of chasing either. During COVID, I had the opportunity, I think it was 2021. I had the opportunity to purchase Pliny the Elder, not that Pliny the Elder, Pliny the Younger, which is one of my bucket list beers. I still want to go to Russian River to try it on tap. I think it would be amazing. It was worth it to me. We paid a lot of money to have somebody from California have it delivered to them and then ship it to us because they only shipped it inside California. So that to me was really awesome. I still have not gotten KBBS, which really makes me sad. I will say that while I was on vacation, Agma did a release, and I'm looking at their site right now, their Nightmare Fuel, Fyule. I am so disappointed that I missed this release because everybody is raving about it. So that's I'm so sad I got it. And I think the Pliny the Younger is the one that I really chased for. That was really the only one I chased. I did happen upon a release at Good People Brewing in Alabama, Birmingham. They had their El Gordo series happened to be released the week that I was there. So I was able to get all 4 variants of that to bring home. And that beer was really good. So I'm really excited to drink some when we're not on the road.
And what about you, Rob?
So similarly, I kind of fell into a few beers that I had been excited to try before. So Pliny the Elder, that's the more common one, I think, is one that a friend had actually brought back a crowler of way back a bunch of years ago. But then I was in San Francisco Airport and it was on tap. So I just kind of fell into that. That was kind of a nice surprise. And then the the same friend who brought me the Crowler of Pliny, he also we did a big beer share at his house to help empty out his cellar because it's getting a little overcrowded. But included in that emptying out was a chemtrail, Dark Lord chemtrail. I think from 2020. I don't remember which year that actually was. So that's one that I had always wanted to try, a variant I'd always wanted to try. I had had a marshmallow hanji the year before. That was to celebrate a
Wait.
graduation.
Was that called Marshmallow Handy?
Hanji,
Oh,
totally different.
sorry.
And so, but the chemtrail kind of rounded out the old classic Dark Lord variants. So I was excited to have that one. And then what was the Naturally Upset? So there was a Dark Lord, or there was a Three Floyds tap takeover at the local, the one that I usually bike to. In fact, I had biked there that day, and so we were sitting there wonderfully, drinking all the delicious Three Floyds beers. They had Crushing Mass is just one of my favorites that I'm actually I just really love it. It's a good coffee beer. But the proprietor of the place, he brought out a bottle of Naturally Upset, the Dark Lord Naturally Upset 2023, and he shared that around to all of us regulars who were sitting at the bar helping to drain his taps for him. So
Nice.
that was kind of cool. But I kind of gave up my chasing days. I was more interested in that in the past, and then I have done beer trading, and I would do beer trading again because I think that's fun. But I really like trading just shelfies with people, so that way you can afford to send, a bunch of beers, like 16 beers across the country, and get 16 beers back that you wouldn't normally be able to find in your area. So that's kind of nice. But then you're not getting whales. And I'm just kind of done chasing whales, but I would really like to get out to Hill Farmstead and just kind of have a beer outside on their property. I sent a friend there once because he was headed out in that area and said, any breweries I should try in this area? And I said, this one. And he sent me back pictures and said they had a wonderful time. They're going to go out there again just to go to this brewery. So I kind of want to get there.
I
I'll
think
tell you what. Oh, go ahead, Ken. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of not whale chasers, but brewery chasers, like people who are going to want to go to a very specific brewery. Like I will tell you, going to the Alchemist in Stowe, beautiful fucking spot, like easily one of my favorite spots. Whenever people go to Traverse City and everyone's like, oh, what's your favorite place in Traverse City? Like, everybody wants to say Hop Lot, Farm Club. Like, you might say the beer is better at a Hop Lot or the beer is better at a different brewery, but Farm Club is just so beautiful up there that it's one of those. It's the same with Burnt Marshmallow too, because it's kind of like Burnt Marshmallow is the Blair Witch Brewery out in Williamsburg or Williamson or whatever, without the scariness. Like you got a little farm there, you got like just a little area where they're like, oh, we should open up a brewery here. Like
I got
you
pigs.
yeah, they got pigs, they got cows, sheep. I think they have a few other different animals out there that you can just kind of watch, and sometimes they come over and you can pet them. But like Burnt Marshmallow, Farm Club, TC, Traverse City, like these are the spots that I think a lot of people are going to start looking to want to go to.
Traverse City is really under the radar too. People think Grand Rapids. You don't hear people talk TC as much.
I think it's because it's so out of the way and comparable to these other cities. Like Grand Rapids is a little bit easier to get to than Traverse City, even though it's only like another hour and a half to Traverse City. I think Grand Rapids is a lot easier. That because it's closer to Chicago and Indiana. It's, if you're going up 75 and you hit Detroit, you could take 96 all the way across. So it's right a direct shot. Whereas Traverse City, you got to go either 75 up and then do a little doohickey to get to Traverse City, or you go across to 131 and you take 131 up. So I agree with you. Traverse City is a great spot and a great place to go. And there's plenty of these little areas all around it that you could do great stuff, like over in Frankfurt, over in Boyne City, over in Petoskey. But again, because of the way Michigan's set up, it's just so out of the way to everything else.
Yeah, there's no real freeway or anything to that effect. You guys all bring up a good point. So do you think chasing overall, as far as specific beers, because I agree with you on the breweries, do you think chasing beers is just on a downtrend and not like we saw, even back in 2015 when it was like all the craze?
I don't know. I feel like it's
I
still
don't-
out there.
I think it's just that we're at a different point in our beer journey at this point, honestly, because I still see people chasing beers all the time. I have friends that are constantly talking about different stuff. And I don't know, I guess we're just kind of, been there, done that for most of it, I think, at this point.
And now that you mentioned, the state of craft beer in the U.S. is so different than it was back in the past. Like, there's so many good beers, and I still hear from people in Europe who are excited to get their hands on Dark Lord or something like that, which, while not common here, it's not that uncommon anymore.
That's still one of mine that I haven't been able to get to.
Oh, I have a bunch of bottles. We'll have to meet up sometime.
I have tried multiple times to get tickets and have never gotten tickets, but I have friends that go every year. It doesn't make any sense.
The COVID year was the best. There was no festival. I drove up. I picked up my beer from a semi out back of the Three Floyds. Like, it felt like a mafia transaction or something. Get your beers off the semi. But I drove home.
Is Three Floyds open to go and try beer, or is it still just pick up there now?
It's funny. Their brew pub, they closed it.
Mhm.
But last I saw, they're looking to reopen it. I don't know that it's reopened yet. So there is no. I don't think they have a tasting center. I don't think they have a way to do beer tasting. They, even when the brew pub was open the last time I was up there, they were not open for tasting. They weren't. They weren't putting up with any of that nonsense. They would not entertain you at all. They just wanted you to do your transaction and get out of there, basically.
I'm trying to look for the photo on the Michigan Craft Beer Discord, but do I think chasing is done? Yes, I think chasing is probably going to be something where a lot of people are going to be done with. They're not going to be going from store to store to store to try to eat up all of the beer releases. On the other hand, however, I think a lot of people still yearn for the community, still yearn for all of the stuff that kind of comes around craft beer. And finally, I got it. And you're going to be able to see where beer releases happen. And people will still be able to not necessarily chase beer, but still see beer. So like this right here, if you guys aren't looking at the screen, of course, we're on youtube.com/Better on Draft, Twitch, and Facebook. But this is a Gorilla Juice release. Like, this is people waiting in line at Ascension Brewing.
Ascension.
Yep, for one of the most recent releases of Gorilla Juice. So I think this is going to become a little bit, I hope, a little bit more of a norm. Obviously, this is illegal. And if you partake in this, the brewery might lose their license. So I will tell you.
Don't cause that.
I will tell you, I can only tell you the legalities, whether you decide to do it or not. Obviously, Ascension and Adam and Brandon and folks over there are okay with it because they don't feel like anybody's going to bother them. But as we were taught by our friend John Piepenbrock, friend of the show, like drinking outside and bringing in beer and stuff to these types of places is illegal.
So with that being said, I will just point out he was the one drinking a Coors Light at Oktoberfest
he was drinking
at
Hams or
Rochester Mills.
PBR.
Oh, it might have been PBR, yeah. But anyways,
Yeah,
Has that law changed since he was in that position, though?
No.
Okay.
No, no
Just
law
wondering.
has changed regarding the ability, because you're technically bringing outside alcohol into, because this is the patio that they use, into a different area onto the property. So the property isn't just necessarily even like here, because it's a shared property. You might be able to have some leniency, like if you drink in the parking lot, because this is the parking lot of the jeweler or the sushi place. It's not the,
feel
it's
like
not
that's not
Ascension. What
legal
are you
either.
talking about? Well, I mean, that's that's not legal for the drinker, but it
Oh,
won't interfere with the license of the business. Whereas this is just completely like you're right there, you're right in front, and it's there are places where nobody cares, but again, if you get a cop that's having a bad day, or you get a rival that decides to call the MLCC and the local police just to piss you off, like who's to say that someone who say Adam pissed someone off, even if it was just a guest, someone who showed up there and they didn't get the food that they liked, so now they're going to, on Gorilla Juice Day, call the police to show up.
Mhm.
It's the beer industry version of swatting.
People are
Like,
assholes.
People
100%.
yeah, so you're going to see these kinds of things that could potentially happen, but the difference is that there's no like fine for this. This is losing your license. Which your license to sell is what you can do, and you're not going to keep staying open as a restaurant for a week when you're a brewery. Like, it just doesn't really work that way unless you're like Redwood Steakhouse or something like that, where you can potentially get away with just being a restaurant for a week.
I mean, it's a UP, isn't it? You can do whatever you want.
Redwood's in Flint.
Oh, never mind.
You're thinking Red Jacket, which is in Calumet.
Oh, my bad.
I did miss going to the library brew pub when I was up in the UP because somebody had forgot to submit their liquor license renewal. And they just
Oh,
shut the whole
geez.
thing down for like a week or two while they waited for it to process. So I have a picture outside of it.
I will be the first. I was not impressed with the library brew pub. With the Keweenaw Brewing right down the road and the prices that they have and the beer that they serve. It's a brewery only, so you can only get beer there. But library, on the other hand, seemed to be it almost felt like downtown Detroit pricing for being in downtown Marquette.
Hey, Ken, did you make it to Brickside Brewery up
I
there?
did, up in Copper Harbor.
I've been trying to get them into the March Draftness ever since we started it, and they never
I
respond.
love that place.
Yeah, we went up there. That's where I proposed to my fiance, was up in that city.
That's awesome.
So we went
Brickside?
to the brewery, and then they have a nice little lakeside restaurant, like a German restaurant over there that has a really good
Oh, nice.
menu and beer and alcohol selection. But I held off on the booze because I was doing something very important that night, so I didn't want to mess that up. That's for damn sure.
My story is not as nice from when I went because I had a run-in with a spider the size of my fucking hand before I got to the brewery. So we drank a lot at the brewery before we went back to the motel.
Bats McGee on our Twitch says that I've seen a lot this at Loaded Dice, referring to the bottle shares. It was on their patio, which is kind of the parking lot, so not sure the legalities of it. I mean, if it's like their patio, I'm probably sure that they could potentially be liable. So should you get, Oakland County Sheriff or a Troy, Michigan cop really upset, having a bad day, and decide to be like, hey, what the fuck are you guys doing? Why are you all drinking out here? You're all in trouble.
Yeah, especially Troy.
There's a group of
rolling
about
away.
8 of us that built a line. Like, we decided for a release that we were going to do a line, and we worked with the brewery about it. But our laws are different in Indiana. We were out in the parking lot for one thing, but the brewery ended up posting a picture of our graveyard. They asked us to leave the graveyard there.
Yeah, I don't know what the legalities are. Should Ascension share this and just be openly blatant about it? Because this is obviously showing their own proof,
Right.
Of what they agree or disagree. Gary says Savannah red cups are fine. I mean, in Michigan, people usually, again, don't care if you're not causing a ruckus. I can't tell you how many parking lots I've drank in, how many venues. Like I literally walked in front of a cop going from MGM to Ford Field with a 24-ounce of Labatt Blue in a paper bag because they don't care if you're not doing dumb shit. Like that's just kind of what it is. But that's, just like in the city of Troy or in the city of Novi, like they might not have much to do. Like they might not have much to do to check in, but I don't think anybody's going to check in unless somebody calls. And in the retail space, doesn't matter who you are, you've pissed someone off. Just like in the podcast space, doesn't matter who you are, you piss someone off. To the point where they stalk you on social medias and change their name and make sock accounts and go all off onto you. So that's kind of my theory is that do I care? No. Is it illegal? Yes. Does the cops care? Just hope they don't. Just hope they don't.
Be mindful is what we're saying.
Yes, be mindful. Don't fucking be blatantly drunk and stupid and, cheersing the people as they're, driving down the road like, woo, like, don't be an idiot.
Don't be a woo girl.
Don't be a woo girl. Well, speaking of woo girls, Rob.
Smooth transition.
Thank you.
So the article that I'm bringing is a destination brewery or a destination beer scene is opening up in Chicago, which I thought that was kind of interesting in itself. But I'm wondering if any of you have ever gone to a destination brewery, specifically there, like, who's the Irish one? Brewdog. Brewdog opened one up in Columbus, Ohio, a while back, like the Beer Hotel, I think it is. And I do know some people who've gone there. You worked on that?
Still working on that.
No, still working on that.
I'm going to make it one day.
But would one in Chicago appeal? Like, did you need a reason to go to Chicago for beer? And then does it change your mind if I told you it's other half that's doing this? So, Wendy, it sounds like you do destination breweries.
So I don't really know exactly what destination brewery means because to me they're all destination breweries. But I think Chicago already has a destination breweries because have you ever been to Lagunitas in Chicago?
No, I've not been to Lagunitas in Chicago.
So that place is like Alice in Wonderland meets hazy IPAs. Like not even hazies because it's Lagunitas, so it's West Coast IPAs, but like the place is amazing. Like the tour that they gave and the show going in and all the different rooms that they had, that to me was a destination brewery. And I tell people all the time, if you're going, you should take the time to go there, even if you don't like their beer, because it's a showroom. Like they made it for us to go there. It's actually in a movie set. Like they used to film movies in the building that Lagunitas is in. So it was really amazing. So the fact that other half is building a destination, what exactly are they calling it? What's making it a destination brewery?
Right. So they are the Ramova Theater, historic Ramova Theater. They're rehabbing that, and they're going to put in the brewery in the upstairs of it. So I'm not exactly sure what that means. Like a theater is a theater's a theater. I don't know what the upstairs of a theater would be called. But it's a sparse article. That seems to be the big draw is that they well, for one thing, it's an other half and it's in Chicago. So they, finally moved off the East Coast, I guess.
I mean, I think other half is kind of a destination brewery anyway. So
I would say for me, the destination brewery that I went to was Blue Moon in Rhino in Colorado, Denver, Colorado. That was one of the few that I want to go to. I would love to. I didn't get a chance to because it's closer to the airport than actual Asheville. But Sierra Nevada down there, doing like a Sierra Nevada tour. A lot of these is just the bigger breweries, but I would suggest for a lot of people on here, especially if you are in Dallas, if you are in San Antonio, take the drive to Shiner. The Shiner Brewery is such an amazing brewery. One, the tour is great, and when you pay for the tour, you get beers that come with it. The food on site is great. You can treat it just as if it's a brewery and buy more beer should you want to drink more beer there. But the Shiner Brewery is for not going there because of a destination. It is a destination you should add onto your list. That's the same with in Houston, St. Arnold, just because how beautiful the brewery is as a full brewery itself. But I'm as I've been talking, I've been trying to think of what is a brewery that I really, really want to go to. And I think only one really, or two, I should say, hit, and they're both major breweries. And that's the Coors Light Brewery over in Colorado in Denver
Golden.
and Golden. Yep. Golden. And then the Anheuser-Busch Brewery over in St. Louis. Like I would love to see these monsters of the industry and what they do and how they provide. Like I watched the Budweiser documentary, King of Beer, I think it was called, or the Beer King, where they talked about how they try to get the same beer, Budweiser, to taste the same wherever they brew it. And that includes like in Macau and all these foreign nations. So yeah, I would love to see a little bit more personally the process over at Golden or in St. Louis.
The St. Louis tour is pretty awesome, but it still feels really industrial. Like they show you all the steps and everything, but it's still, you see the scale of it, and that's what they impress you with.
I think I
guess-
want to see. I was
But-
going to say, I think I want to see the scale. Like
Yeah, it's impressive.
I've seen 1,000 breweries. I want to see what makes this brewery so big, so good, so wide.
Well, I was gonna say that the Shiner Brewery, that was impressive.
Oh, for sure.
Like at large. So yeah, the next level up would be something like the Coors or something to that effect.
I would say the Leinenkugel's tour, that one really impressed me with how much they do with such an historic location and just the size constraints that they have at that location. Not that it's small, it's a huge location, but still they're using these big old buildings to brew that much beer through. It was pretty impressive, but it was more of a hands-on tour. Like they really guide you through it. It didn't feel industrial, which I mean, it's a different feel. They're a little smaller than Anheuser-Busch, but it was still big. So I thought that one was pretty neat.
Now that I think about it, you know what? New Glarus.
I've been there several times, and if you plan it far enough ahead, you can do the hard hat tour. We were looking in August, I think, and they had sold out through to the winter. And then you don't necessarily want to start planning for winter in Wisconsin. Maybe you don't mind that drive, but
Nope.
so then you're looking into like March, April, probably. But yeah, I've done the hard hat tour, and that was we planned it in August. We booked it for April, and it was great. But the self-guided tour is also really good.
I tell you what, I did a tour at Toppling Goliath when I was there, and that was pretty amazing. I did try to get into Coors when I was in Golden, and they had a employee function that day, so it was shut down for tours. And when I was in St. Louis, I chose to go to local breweries instead. So, but I agree with Ken. I would love to see all those, just the scale of what's going on there.
It's got to be the next level. Like we've all seen, the brewery tours that we've been into. Like I've been to Old Nation, I've been to Brew Detroit. Like I've been to larger breweries in the state. But when we went to Shiner, like that was such a massive brewery, and now it's like, all right, I want to see the next step. To be honest, I'd love to go see the Blue Moon tour, but we didn't get a chance to go to tour when we went to the Rhino Industry over in Colorado.
So I really enjoyed when I was in Boston, I did the Sam Adams tour, which is just a small part. You don't actually go through most of their actual brewery. It's mostly it's the I can't even think of the word. it's the original brewery, so you get a lot of the smaller batch stuff. You don't get the large production stuff that you would get with Sam Adams. But then we went over to Harpoon, and they take you through their production facility. And that tour, to me, like, especially doing the two of them back to back, were awesome. Like, I just loved seeing it, and I liked hearing the history from both sides because, you know, they had competition over who's the first license in Boston. So it was a
Doesn't
really good
Harpoon
time to
win?
see
Don't
both
they
of
have
those.
license number 1 right there up on the wall?
Harpoon has license number 1. Yep. Even though Sam Adams was brewing before them, but it's all about politics and license. It was law changes, so technically they have license number 1, and they are going to hold them to that forever.
Yep. Did you go to Harpoon when they had the nice tasting room? Because I've been okay. That nice tasting room. I don't know if you went in the restrooms, but the view from the restrooms is amazing, and I tell people to go in there and check it out because you look over Boston Harbor. It's just beautiful.
Yes. I don't remember the view from the bathroom, but I do remember that tasting room.
Yeah, it's nice.
Now, of course, if you're listening and you are a newer fan of Better on Draft, we've actually had both of those breweries on our show. Harpoon Brewery was episode 301 back in September 2022, and Boston Beer Company was also September 2022, episode 299.
Oh, so Boston Beer Company came first that time.
Yes, Boston Beer Company did technically come first as on the list of guests from Better on Draft. But then technically the Rochester Mills is number 1 for us. All right. As we are ending the show here in a minute, if nobody else has anything else they want to add on the world of destination beer, what is, and we're going to make this a very, very simple New Year's resolution for all 4 of us that we can forget about and then try to remember next year to bring up before the show ends. What is a brewery or beer on your mind that you want to make sure you try in 2024, whether you got to take a trip to it, whether you got to buckle down and just go have it, or you got to wait in line to get it, like where we have Bats McGee saying that he got his Utopia this year. What is a beer or brewery you want to visit next year, 2024? Dan.
God, I can't. I feel like I've been to all the ones I want to go to. So, all right, here's one. So 2024, I got to get back to Bottle Logic. It's been a couple of years now, and I was right there down the street back in November. Didn't go because I ended up at the brewery multiple times. So that's definitely where I want to go back to.
Rob.
I was in Switzerland this year in both Zurich and Geneva, and I loved them. They're not huge beer destinations, but I hear Bern is, and so I'm hoping to get back to Switzerland and get to Bern this time.
Wendy.
Oh my gosh, I have so many beer resolutions this year. So
Love it.
this is going to be my KBBS year. I swear to God, I am going to get there for KBBS. It's good.
They're in like Iowa, right? Is it Iowa,
Yes.
Nebraska?
And I went
Iowa.
to Toppling Goliath. I loved it. They were amazing. There was no KBBS in sight. I got to go when they're serving it. Son of a bitch. I saw he actually wouldn't let me leave the barrel room. Like he's like, I'm just going to stand right here next to you just in case. I'm like, I'm not going to take a whole barrel. But yeah, so KBBS is 2024 is going to be my year for that. My other goal, I think, is to go to, I really want to do the Belgian tour. I want to go to all the abbeys, and I keep saying I'm going to do it, and I keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. So I think I need to start planning that. I might not make it happen in 2024, but if I start planning it, I can make it happen in 2025.
I think 2025, I'm going to be doing my European trip that I planned for 2020.
Hey, finally.
I know. It was one of those just I mean, for Dan knows, like I had this thing fucking written out. Like I had
We
30
talked about it
days.
extensively.
I was ready to go to like there would have been a sabbatical for Better on Draft. I would have been out and about having fun. But I think we're going for my honeymoon. We're gonna hit up Europe for 2025. 2024, on the other hand, I want to hit a handful of the very, very random, sporadic breweries in the state of Michigan that I just have not had a chance to go to. And what I mean by that is, I mean like Cedar Springs, Three Rivers, these breweries that aren't necessarily large. Like when I go to Temperance down at the south end of Michigan, the very southeast part of Michigan, Pavlov's is amazing. And when I did like Meckley's and I did Tecumseh and I did all these breweries in that tour, like all these were so great. So I want to go and try to make, even if it's just like a random one night where we just go drive out to a place and drink at a brewery or two and spend the night at a local Best Western and drive back the next day. Like I want to be able to do that a little bit more this year, where I'm not necessarily just kind of like sitting around the house on a Saturday doing nothing. Like I want to go visit some of these smaller breweries that we know and we talk about and we see here in Michigan.
Hey, real quick before you move on, I just opened this Southern Grist mango Bracco nut that I thought was a brown, but it's actually an IPA. Holy shit, this is delicious.
Oh, Wendy loves IPAs.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Tell us how you really feel.
Oh my god, this is so good. I am so mad that I did not buy more than one.
Well, that is going to do it. Gary agrees on our Facebook page. That is going to do it for Better on Draft. 2023 is in the books. Folks, 337 episodes of this podcast. We have been going since 2015. For everyone that has been part of this journey, including former hosts like Matt, Nick, Angela, Rob, the other Rob, Robert, and of course for my current
Don't
host,
forget
Dan.
Dennis.
Oh yeah, Dennis. I guess we should add Tara and the Brew Locker to that list too. For of course my current co-host Dan, Rob, and Wendy. Dan, Rob, we got to get you on the intro now. I got to go contact Pints and Panels.
It's been like 4 episodes. Yeah.
I made it.
He made it. That is going to do it. Check us out on all of our social medias. Better on Draft on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. We do have a Rumble page. We've got a YouTube page, a Kick page, a Twitch page, a TikTok page. Just about all of our social medias are at Better on Draft, including Untapped. We are at Better on Draft on Untapped now.
What's our Pornhub handle?
At Better on Draft.
That's my bad.
What were you thinking?
I don't know.
It's gonna be
I
really
hope
scary if there's actually a Pornhub handle at Better on Draft.
I don't want to know.
It's just
Wendy's
me.
checking right now.
It's me talking about all of this being my show and my love and my
Pornhub.
everything.
Yeah.
It's
all about you,
basically
Ken.
just self masturbation about Better on Draft. And it's
Don't need to know
all
if there's
being
some
about
porn
me.
meaning for draft.
We'll find out. Apparently, all of our sponsors this year, especially Zatuna Liquor in Rochester Hills, North Center Brewing over in Northville, Michigan, and of course our current new sponsor, Craft Tapped. Go download, get a subscription, folks. If you still have white elephant gifts, if you still have Christmas gifts, whatever you may need, Craft Tapped is very, very cheap, and it allows people to go get up to 10 beers at half off every single month for only, I think, $9.99 for the year. Use the code BOD. It's available too in other states, including Arizona. So
Is that
will-
$999?
No, that's $9.99, $9.99. It's different for every state, but at least for Michigan, that's what it costs. Use the code BOD no matter what state you're in and get a discount on top of the discount that is going on right now. No matter what you think of your beer, we think it's Better on Draft. Have a good night.
Cheers.